William, your videographer from Two Hats Publishing. Welcome to the College of Complexes, being held at Barbeck's Restaurant at 8949 Garland Road, Dallas, Texas. Gently embracing the east side of White Rock Lake. When I entered, I was greeted like coming home to Grandma's house, warm and friendly. When visiting the Barbeck's Restaurant, tell them you want your reservations for the next College of Complex class.
Well, welcome to the College of Complexes. This is our 222nd meeting. We started in February of 2009. Actually, this started in Chicago in 1951 for the purpose of solving all the world's problems. They're still working at it. We put a different speaker on every week, a different subject. We require our speakers to take a position on an issue, express a point of view. They have to be for or against something. We don't care what it is. I lost it there. She was, I could tell she was upset I was going to say the same thing again. Oh, my shirt, that's the same thing too, another problem. Anyway. We put a speaker on every week, a different subject. We require our speakers to take a position on an issue or express a point of view. They have to be for or against something. If anybody interrupts the speaker, we remind them we only listen to one fool at a time. We have questions and answers, not speeches, afterwards. And then we have remarks, rebuttals. Everybody in this audience gets 5 minutes at the podium to respond to what the speaker said for or against. And then our speaker gets a comment and close the meeting. That's how it works. Anyway, before we put on our speakers, are there any announcements? Now's the time for announcements. Everybody has the announcements. Any announcements? None? I don't see any. No one has the announcements? Do you have? Yeah. She's not here. Is she coming in? No? All right, well.
Stood up and squealed.
Actually, what? Come on up here and mention it. What do you want me to mention? What's the name of the movie? So, Caesar versus Chavez. Very good movie. We saw it last night. It was at Valley View, $6. So it's a good movie. Worth seeing. Anyway, for announcements, next week we have Pat O'Connell, author, communications consultant for high-tech industry, is going to talk about can the true skeptic believe in conspiracies. She's going to build a logical case for even a skeptic's acceptance of some of today's most notable conspiracy claims. It's on your itinerary there that I handed out. I don't want to read all this and put you to sleep. And April 12th, we have what really happened at Waco and will it happen again? Stuart Nelson, he's going to talk about that. And April 19th is changing Dallas ISD into a home rule district, a bad idea. That's Hobie Huckle. He's talked here once before. He's going to talk about that. That's on your itinerary also. What's that?
What does that mean, home rule district?
A home rule district is where the area, they get away from the state requirements of schools and they do what they want. It's not a local control, and there's good and bad in it, because it can be bad when you get too much local control. You can do anything you want. Yeah. Anyway, that ought to be interesting.
Well, about 6 kids from Booker T. Washington got accepted to Juilliard School.
Well, it's good.
One of them really got a big honor on the scholarship committee.
Well, anyway, seeing as though there's no announcements, there's no additional thing we want. Well, our speaker tonight is Ray Crelia. He's a concerned citizen and College of Complexes regular. He's going to be talking about what would Paul Harvey be saying tonight. In the tradition of the lace newscaster Paul Harvey, here's a potpourri of today's news. He's going to discuss various current events, including ObamaCare, the Ukraine crisis, immigration, and a segment he calls Strategies for the Political Left. Ray will express his opinion on these matters and contends this evening will be interesting, informative, balanced, and we should be prepared to hear and participate. So without further ado, please give a very, very warm welcome to Ray Crelia. Did I get cut you off too soon?
No, you're right on it. My goodness, we're starting before I would have thought. I had to gulp it down. Go. That's all right. No problem.
Why is this thing humming?
Humming.
We've had it for 5 years. Sometimes it hums. It's great. Turn the cordless off. So it can't.
Well, first of all, let me thank you all for coming. I'm always humbled when people come and think that I might have something worthwhile to say. Tonight, though, I do want to talk about a number of just different subjects. They will be current events, and I'm going to try to frame them in a context of strategies of the political left. Now, one thing about the political left is that it is not new. We have not come up with a political left and leftist people and leftist parties because it has been around for a long time. Sometimes people think that Karl Marx was the one who's given credit for the modern day socialism, but all he did was sort of articulate it and write it down. The practices and principles of the left are as old as history itself. There have always been power-hungry individuals who were glad to suppress the people and force them into submission, while the ruling elite would live in splendor. Now, if you were to simplify a whole lot of history, you could even say that is much of history. In the late 1700s, the French court lived in utter opulence. And as I proceed, I hope a whole lot of this will become a little clearer, and maybe we can have some time for questions later. But the French court was living high, living well. They lacked nothing, while the rank and file French people were in such grinding poverty they were hardly able to stay alive. When they could take it no longer, the French people rose up against their government. They tore down the Bastille prison, and they began a program, if you know the history, of lopping off the heads of the ruling aristocracy with the guillotine. It was the people against their government. And again, if you want to simplify a lot of history, that is what you will come up with. You could say that a lot of history was the people against their government. But just before the French Revolution, we know this, the colonists in America were experiencing outrages, one outrage after another, from their king in England. Taxation without representation. They were getting taxes galore, but had no say in the government of England. And worst of all, the king, hear this, the king would not obey the laws of England. After all, he probably said something like, I'm the king, I can do whatever I want. Now here is a quote, the Declaration of Independence. The king. He has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out our substance. Unquote. That was the King of England. Now, they were not called the Internal Revenue Service at that time. Clearly, the people of the colonies had had enough. When the people of the colonies had this much against the king, and the king was not obeying even his own laws, the people, the colonists, believed that it was their duty to cast off this tyrannical government and institute another. A little wider.
Yeah, I think that might help. Experiment.
Did you hear that? The colonists were fed up with the king, and they believed it was their duty to cast off the government and institute another. It was the people against their government. In our time, we are seeing repeats of this same scenario. In Ukraine, pardon me, the people ousted their corrupt president, that was Viktor Yanukovych. Then the people were able to see his grand mansion outside of Kiev. It was palatial. He had his own zoo, gardens, manicured lawns, and extravagant art. He lived well. Paid for on the salary of a president? No, of course not. It was stolen from the people. It took Ukrainians weeks of demonstrating in the cold to finally force him out. It was the people against their government. Look at Syria and Assad. We've got Venezuela. They've run out of toilet paper. And now they don't have any food. They are against Maduro. That's their dictator. In Thailand, the president is a woman, and they want her out. You want the phrase again? It's the people against their government. It is as old as history. How can this possibly have anything to do with our own country, our situation today? Because, my friends, if I could ever make a point, I would want you to know that nothing has changed. There are still ambitious people. There are still those who want to rule over others. There are people who want to be a law unto themselves. You and I would be exercising the height of naivete to think that we are immune from all these threats, these issues. We would be naive if we thought it can't happen here. Now a change of subject, sort of. Let's identify who exactly is the political left. I hope this will unfold and you will make it clear. Did you want to ask a question now, Susan?
No, I just want to say I was.
Okay. Who is the political left? Well, you do know that they are here. The political left is here in this country, and they are in force. They are in many different areas of American life. We'll talk about 5, and that is not an exhaustive list. 5 of the main ones, if you're ready. Number 1, that would be the media. These aren't necessarily in the order of importance, but the media is on the political left. NBC, CBS, ABC, CNN, MSNBC, the New York Times, the LA Times. Folks, it's most all newspapers and even magazines lean heavily left. You are hard-pressed to read even a specialty magazine, cooking and fashion or whatever, gardening sometimes, and not be exposed to left-leaning ideas. Genuine journalism in this country has been extremely rare for the last many years. Some of us who are finally getting long in the tooth still remember the Soviet Union and its news outlets. One of them, it hurts my tongue to say it, it sounds like it's Vetsia. Remember that one? I think it's a news agency. And Pravda. I think Pravda is still a Russian newspaper. Nobody took their news seriously, especially those outside the Soviet Union. The newspapers were propaganda. They were an arm of the Communist Party. All they had to report was the party line. They could do no other. But our media in the U.S. today has freedom of press, right? But they seldom exercise their freedom. Instead, they all report, take note, the same stories. Newspaper to newspaper, network to network, they're the same stories, reported the same way, and some of the same words and phrases. In large measure, their talking points come from various people in the government. Newspapers. So even our own media is giving us the party line. And they are glad to do it because they are all of the same ideology. They have the same agenda. They are all leftists. They are all big government people. They all think that whatever problems we have in this country can be solved by a big, expansive, controlling government based in Washington, D.C., led by northeastern elites. So journalism in this country is dead. Another one, that was number one. Others on the political left, suffice it to say, entertainment. And I can just ask you one question about the entertainment industry. Do you know one person in some part of the entertainment industry who is a genuine conservative? And you can say, Ray, that is absolutely laughable. Okay, they can be found. They can be found, but they are few and far between. Okay, are we still here? Number one, the media. Number two, entertainment. Number three is academia. From the public schools to the college campuses, the movement is toward the political left. And yes, public schools. After all, this is where the indoctrination takes place. Here is how more leftists are brought on board. How many college professors did we have who were flaming leftists? I had them. Number four, environmentalist. Environmentalism. They are some of the most radical leftists of all. Take note, my friends, they do not care about some pristine environment, but to advance the leftist cause. Now let me say this about a quote. I have lost the one who quoted it. It goes back to the 60s. And it says, I'll give it to you literally and we'll try to explain. The issue is not the issue. The issue is the revolution. You have picked a wonderful time to wear that shirt.
Good. I love it when I do that.
Yes. Did you get it? The issue is not the issue. The issue is the revolution. I'll explain. What they meant by that, we're talking about environmentalism right now, so let's use it as the example. Say it like this. The issue is not environmentalism. The issue is the revolution. Wait a minute, Ray. Don't use that word revolution today. Has some bad connotations. All right, let's look at it this way. Are you with me? The issue isn't the environment. The issue is fundamentally transforming America. That is today's revolution. Healthcare, the issue is not healthcare. The issue is fundamentally transforming America. Number 5, most of government is going to be on the left. Most of Washington, D.C. leans left. Now, there are many exceptions, of course, but by and large, government people lean left, and some of them lean strong left. Some of the worst are career politicians who are so entrenched, so secure in their position, they have nothing to lose. You're a good audience. So, what do the people we are calling the political left want to accomplish? What do they want to do to this country? I'm going to give you a little list. It is not a exhaustive list, but here are a few. I hope to talk about a few of them in a few minutes, but right now I would like to give you the list first. Okay? What does the left want to do? They want to grow government. They want it to be massive. They want more people working for it. They want it to have more power. They want to control information. The dictatorships of the world always controlled information. As in the Soviet Union, Pravda, if they were an arm only of the Soviets. Control the news. Create a permanent underclass that are dependent on the government. A permanent underclass. They want to shrink the private sector. The idea is government, not people and not private industry. They want to redistribute wealth. They want anybody who is successful to be penalized, punished. They want to take his money, her money, and they want to give it to anybody that they want to give it to. Abolition of private property. I want to tell you that when the left wants to abolish private property. I'm not seeing a huge problem with that right now, but you will find that people in those countries around the world, they don't own much of anything. Another, destruction of the family. The family is a strong, cohesive group they teach their kids, they raise them up well. It is the indication of a strong society with strong families. That's the definition of a strong country and a strong culture. So it must be destroyed. Another? Abolition of religion. The political left are godless. Religion must be destroyed. Get rid of it. Minimize it. Don't let it ever seep out of a church door. Another? Indoctrination of the young. You want to start while they are small. No guns in private hands. The left does not like guns. They want to inflict pain. They want to punish their enemies, and they will reward their friends. The heartbreaking thing, I hate to tell you, and I know you know it, our president uttered those words in 2010. We will punish our enemies. We will reward our friends. How does that work with equality under the law? The left will want to bring the country to its knees. Most of these steps have been followed by leftists for centuries. Here is how the ruling elite take control of a country. Here is how a totalitarian government sets itself up over the population and rules with an iron hand. These are the steps that you take. The political left, try to watch and listen closely here. The political left thought they had their man in Bill Clinton, a Rhodes Scholar, fantastically brilliant guy, strong leftist. He is the man. But midterm, Bill Clinton capitulated. It happened because of Newt Gingrich and the contract with America in the mid-90s. The left was disappointed in him. When are they going to get somebody? When our president first became president, he said, "Looks like we're the ones we've been waiting for." And that's exactly what he meant. We are the ones to turn America on its head. We are the ones who are going to transform this country. We will uproot it. The list is not an exhaustive list, but there could be another step that the leftists could take that would control the very life and health of the people. Make the people dependent upon a distant government for all their health care needs. The issue isn't health care. The issue is a revolution fundamentally transforming America. No wonder our dear leader received high praise for his historic accomplishment from two of the world's dictators, Fidel Castro, Hugo Chavez. Many of these trends are happening now in our country. I can't talk about all of those that I gave from the list. I'm going to try to pick out a few. Grow government. For some reason, the country of Greece came to mind. Let me give that to you as an example. Probably a couple of years old for an example, but 1 in 4 people worked for the government. 1 in 4. They all had big government pensions, nice salaries, benefits. Well, with 25% of the population of the country working for the government, it was unsustainable. The country went broke. There was no pension money. And then austerity was forced upon the Greeks. Then there were riots, remember? Greece was brought to its knees. Big government, unbridled spending, outrageous taxes finally caused the country to collapse like a house of cards. We are following a similar pattern, my friends. Government is not only bigger, but is becoming more and more intrusive into our lives. One quick example must suffice. When ObamaCare was passed into law, 16,000 new government employees were hired. Doctors, nurses, pharmacists, medical researchers. You know the answer, don't you? They were IRS agents. It's going to be the IRS who is charged with the implementation, the forcing of ObamaCare upon us. If there is one agency of government we would not want to see grow, it would be the IRS, because their officers will harass our people and eat out our substance. These are not just words, folks. If they can do it, they will do it. Quote, as government expands, liberty contracts. Ronald Reagan. The second one, creating a nation of dependents, the permanent underclass. Here's an example. Keeping young people on the parents' insurance until they are 26 years old, providing 99 weeks of unemployment. Now, don't we know in our heart of hearts that out of the millions of people who are on food stamps now, that most of them are able-bodied and they are healthy enough to work somewhere. Our government advertises to encourage more people to get on food stamps. We are paying people not to work. To go in this direction is to create a nation of serfs, of little people. We're little people. While those in government and those who cooperate with government will live in the lap of luxury. They will have their second homes, fine cars. You can guarantee they will live in splendor. A little takeoff on that. Many of you have children. Would you give your own children all they want? Would you tell them, you don't have to work? Just relax. I am going to support you all your life. Just don't worry about it. That would be absolutely mad. Nobody does that. You know how ruinous that would be to them. You want them to work. You want them to succeed and get ahead. You're proud of them when they do. old adage says, give a pig and a boy all they want. You will have a good pig and a bad boy. For able-bodied people to accept welfare hurts their own self-esteem. They haven't done anything to deserve it. This does not help people. It hurts them. Another quote. Welfare is a narcotic, a subtle destroyer of the human spirit. Shock of all shocks, that was Franklin Roosevelt in 1935. Even he, according to FDR, he knew that welfare was designed to get people hooked. A narcotic. Somebody in the mid-1800s says something to the effect, without making it a quote, that when people can vote themselves money from the public trust, it's over. Because people will vote themselves money from the public trust, and it'll be more and more, and it won't end until the country ends. So government is not doing this out of compassion. They are doing it for the votes. Please understand that. I'm glad, is it Curtis?
Yeah, believe me, I'll get my chance.
You're good. I'm glad you're here.
Believe me, I will get my chance.
Listen to this, everybody.
You'll hear the other side of that. You'll hear the rest of that story, but you're not getting it. Go ahead. I love you, but don't go ahead.
The black family endured centuries of slavery, a civil war, Jim Crow laws after slavery, racism in the 50s and 60s, only to be undone by the welfare state. It's just a waste. All right? So far, so good. Are you hanging with me? You're very good, audience. Another one. No guns in private hands. The left does not want guns in private hands. We have recently seen in Ukraine how the people toppled their corrupt leftist president. Pardon me. How they demonstrated in the streets. They built barricades. They threw rocks. The government had all the guns. They had all the firepower. The people had rocks. It was only because of overwhelming numbers of Ukrainians and their tenacity that the president finally realized his time was up. You can be assured that this country, with a constitution that allows its citizens to bear arms, is a thorn in the side of leftists. They hate it. It has been an intractable problem that gnaws at them constantly. Then, when an unhinged lunatic shoots up the place and kills people, their reaction is to go after the guns. There's a piling on. The media is all over it. Politicians rant and rave. The president makes another speech. They are going after the guns. They don't let a crisis go to waste. Take note, when they find a crisis or they fabricate one, they have a better chance of getting their way. politicians prefer unarmed peasants. The erosion of privacy. After I wrote these little notes, really just last week, Rand Paul went to Berkeley and spoke to Berkeley students. You can say, Rand Paul, over on the right, Berkeley students can't get any further to the left. They will laugh him out of town.
Robert Reich on the back row.
And he got a standing ovation. They loved him. Berkeley students? Rand Paul? Here is the subject that clicked. Here is the subject those young people were interested in. He nailed it. He knew what drove them. They are tired of snooping. They don't like it that everything they do can be found out. Last year, we learned that the Justice Department was spying on the Fox News reporter James Rosen and even reporters at the Associated Press. It agitated the Associated Press and they're leftists. Just recently, the Federal Communications Commission was forced to back down in its attempt to send government monitors into major media outlets throughout the country. Did you hear that? A couple of 3 weeks ago? Monitors in the newsroom. They were to ask intrusive questions regarding the philosophy of the newsroom. They would have government bureaucrats to be decision makers regarding what news would be disseminated. They had even created 8 topics which news outlets would be obligated to prioritize. This was probably the most blatant attacks on constitutional rights we have ever seen, and it would have been led by a presidential appointee. Monitors in the newsroom. They backed off. They backed off. Another thing to know, leftists will not stop. It will raise its ugly head in some other form. And we heard not long ago how the Chancellor of Germany, Angela Merkel, she called our president to express her indignation that our NSA, that's the National National Security Administration, had actually tapped into her cell phone.
For 10 years.
She would not have made a call if that was possibly not true. Understand, she knew that her phone had been hacked. And she was not the only chief of state that gave a reprimand to our president. The president of Brazil, her name is Dilma Rousseff, she also called Obama to express her displeasure with a similar intrusion. It happened. Paul Harvey would call that snoopervision. Ostensibly to supervise this, but they're worming in, they're snooping. Folks, this is Big Brother. How much about you do they know, or can they find out? It's unlimited. Let me ask you this. Do you have some physical malady that you would rather nobody know about? It's a secret. You and your doctor, you don't publish this. If you have been to the doctor, it is out there. It is known. You're going to have young, healthy bureaucrats who look and laugh and say, look at what this guy's got. This lady, oh, brother, look at this. health care secrets between you and your doctor? Not with this Obamacare. This is what we get, folks, with an unrestrained government that believes it can do whatever it wants, and nobody out there will do a thing about it. About to wind up here. Will there ever be a pushback? Will our people wake up, the sleeping giant? Will we just continue our decline? Will we have in this United States of America a strong leftist government that gets everything it wants? Will we be controlled by a ruling elite like most every other country of the world? Will government of the people, by the people, for the people, be a thing of the past? Who is going to resist? Who's going to push back? Well, it's not the Republicans, at least not now. They are beaten back. They have been whipped into submission. The media thrashes them so badly they cannot seem to get a message out or win the PR battle. When there is no resistance to a leftist onslaught, hope is diminished. Here's a quote you can take home. A nation of sheep will beget a government of wolves. Edward R. Murrow. Could it ever happen in our country that the people get fed up with the leftist pattern of dismantling all our institutions, our values, of traditions, of robbing us of our freedoms, of regulating us into submission, of jamming policies and laws down our throats, like the ACA, that our people finally decide to resist? They're going to push back. If that happens, it is the people against the government. That's radical, but I would not be too quick to rule that out. But finally, what would be the next step taken by the political left that would put them into power, perhaps permanently? What could they do that would almost ensure their total, complete power and perpetuity? What could they do? Well, this will be somewhat my opinion, but you'll have to prove me wrong. What could give them ultimate control of the country? What are they salivating to get? What really would change America fundamentally forever? And if they get this, we will not be the land of the free, the home of the brave. We will not be the shining city on a hill. The glory of America will be found only in the history books. That issue would be immigration. Permit me to explain. If many millions of illegals can somehow be given amnesty and vote, guess who most of them would vote for? That would mean Republicans will not have the votes to oppose anything. They would be essentially inert. They just as well come home. Then we will have a one-party rule. One party in the House, one party in the Senate, and one party in the presidency. The same party. checks and balances, gone. Total control of one party over all Americans. All of the safeguards put in place by our founding fathers would have been swept away. Another quote. Liberty, once lost, is lost forever. Liberty, once lost, is lost forever. John Adams. All it would take is amnesty for a few million illegals, and America will indeed fundamentally change. And we just might be the generation that lets it happen. It will not be pretty, because we have been the nation of sheep. The wolves will come. How can we ever get our country back if that scenario happens? What might have to happen then is almost too scary to contemplate. It will be the people against their government. And now you know the rest of the story. I'm ready for questions. Wow.
Who wants to be first?
Do you agree that all politics basically are local?
Well, yes, we might have to get to definitions of that. Yes, it's local.
So, would you consider the Dallas Morning News a left-wing paper?
I believe that the Dallas Morning News leans left. I don't think they're heavy on it. I read the Dallas Morning News all the time.
I'll tell you what, when they had Times Herald was a bad guy, and Dallas Morning News at that time was conservative.
Who's got the talking stick?
Okay, I just wanted to ask you a question. Do you realize that this is called the red state and voted Republican, that the red states have a higher divorce rate than the blue states? Hey, I'm talking, man.
You're probably right. Is that a question?
Yes.
You're probably right. Do you have a statistic that I may not have?
And do you consider the Republicans much more moral?
I wish that the Republicans were more constitutional. I wish they were more active. I wish they would do something. I'm afraid too many of them are also either leftist or lean left or just don't care. As I have said in the talk, right now they are beaten down. They are doing nothing. They are inert. You mentioned the Dallas Morning News. Once in a while they have a good one here. Somebody read this. March the 12th, Obama seeking to force overtime pay. OT is overtime. I was surprised at that. I read the same article, the same story in the New York Times, and they did not use that word force. Obama seeking to force. Even they recognize that. We do not have a country if we have forcing of anything. Good. Any other question? We're in the question mode.
Ray,
Okay.
you left me somewhat surprised here and there, but do you really truly believe that the elite, the financial elite, and the corporate elite that has offshored American manufacturing to an overseas production zone, do you really think they're a liberalist elite?
The ones I am calling the political left and the elitists are going to be government people, and those who cozy up and cooperate with government. If you have some big corporation and you do not bow down to this government, you will be attacked. Hobby Lobby? Anybody?
Yeah, but Ray, do you not, let me ask you a question. Don't you think that, as Tom often says, we have the best government money can buy, and the people that have the money are Wall Street and the corporations? I mean, the little guys like me and you, we don't have the money. How the hell could we buy anybody? I mean, I don't quite understand the correlation between this liberal conspiracy and the driving power of this money, because I don't have it, we don't have it.
Let me make a correction.
How does it follow?
One of the things you said, this is not a conspiracy. These are people who believe the same things. They believe in a big controlling government based in Washington with a Northeast elite. That's what they believe. And I have said that these are the kinds of people with the same ideas that have been around for centuries. They are people who want to control, they want to be on the top, they want to control the masses. Okay, Curtis?
I've got a series of questions.
Well, you can have one and maybe give somebody else a chance.
I'll let them take the phone away from Harvey, you mentioned that. Were they providing contraceptives to people before Obamacare? Were they providing contraceptives? Well, why is it such a big deal now?
It's abortion drugs only.
Well, contraceptives, they're used, they have more than one purpose just for that abortion. Well, were they providing that before Obamacare? But if they were, why are you making that such a big issue, saying that that's a good example of how the president and Obamacare is trying to force government trying to force them to do something against their religious freedom, when they were providing that to their employees even before Obamacare?
All right, hold on. I'll try to answer that the best I can. There are 20 some odd different kinds of drugs of that sort, and I'm going off in territory that I'm not sure of. They were providing any number of contraceptives to their employees all along, up to something like most of them. But there were a few that were literally abortifacients. They would abort. And the whole idea now, Hobby Lobby, it is religious freedom. And don't think it's about abortions. Don't think it's about anything else. It is religious freedom. Those people have believed that in their heart of hearts for as long as they've been alive. Their whole family is like that. They believe that taking a life in the womb is still wrong and murder. And that is their beliefs. And if that is taken away from them, one of the things I told you tonight, you destroy religion. If the left wins that one with Hobby Lobby, that is a big jack boot in the door for more destruction of anything that's religious. Let somebody else, if somebody else wants to ask the question, let's let Margaret do it.
One question. Speaking of religion, what about a Jehovah's Witness run company? How do you handle the situation that they do not believe in blood transfusions? So are they going to be able to eliminate blood transfusions from their insurance policies on their employees?
Margaret, I don't want to go there. That isn't a live issue right now. That is not in front of us. I'm not ready to answer. So if I'm not...
Just blow them up like Waco.
If I don't know, folks, I am glad to tell you I don't know squat about it. Let's try to stick with what else I've said. Hank.
who do you like that works for government? Like, did you like the Bushes? Did you like Cheney? Who do you like? Who do you like in the last 20 years?
Well, we're kind of wandering on the fringes of what the talk was about tonight. I'm interested in people who will be strong constitutionalists, who will be for limited government. I want to see freedom. I want to see America prosper. I'm for that person who will stand up and be counted.
Well, is there an example? That's very abstract. Is there anybody that exemplifies that, that's well known?
I mentioned Rand Paul.
You like Rand Paul?
He'll be a good one.
Governor of Wisconsin.
I mentioned some names on here. I have deliberately tried not to get too full of names. I just want to see a strong America. I'm seeing a weakening of America. Its life, its vitality, its energy, the jobs, everything about the country, its institutions, its values, they are being attacked by the left. Another one, Curtis?
Yeah, concerning illegal immigrants. Did you know the president has deported more illegal immigrants than the previous president?
Yes.
All right.
Yes, he has.
Well,
Yes, would you like me to answer that?
Yes, go ahead.
Most of them are lawbreakers. He has deported more. The majority of them are lawbreakers, very ne'er-do-wells, and those are the ones that he has gotten out of here, and he has shipped them out wholesale. That is fine. But that is a misleading figure that we have been given, that he has deported more. He has, but they are the baddest of the bad. Another question.
Yes.
Anybody else?
What percentage of illegal immigrants of Hispanic vote did President Bush get? If Democrats are out to just give complete amnesty to them and knowing that they're going to vote for Democrats, what percentage of the Hispanic vote did President Bush get?
You tell me.
It's about 45%.
Okay.
Yeah. So to assume that they're all going to turn and vote Democrat is simply not true. He got 45% of the. Yeah. So, but 45, but they're not just voted. They're not just all voting for a Democrat. He got 45% of them.
I set this up as a possibility that if indeed we get amnesty for many millions of people, it won't take much more than, I don't know, throw out a figure, 5, 6, 7 million. There's something like 12 million illegals around. If most of them vote for the political left, that's when there will be a one-party system. And I really believe that this government that we have right now desperately wants the amnesty because they know it will give them ultimate power. Now, if somehow those people really don't vote for the political left, and I think enough of them will, then all bets are off. Who is it?
Ray, you're such a good speaker. I'm sorry I don't agree with you. I have a minor point. I wonder how... Like this.
Like that.
I was wondering how a nation of sheep could beget wolves. Most species beget their own species, so that's kind of a puzzlement for me.
Well, it doesn't mean begetting in the sense of the offspring. It means that you're going to create the wolves. You have a nation of sheep, the wolves are going to come. That was Edward R. Murrow, and he said that 30 or 40 years ago. In other words, you're going to find that if people are weak, and if people lay down, and if people are sheep, you can guarantee that the wolves will come. And what do wolves do to sheep? They devour them. The intention is if we don't do something, and if we lay down, and we are a nation of sheep, we will be devoured.
Ray, if you say that the media is controlled by the left, this statement is a question, okay? During the campaign, you remember Mitt Romney saying if we lower income taxes back down to 28% and eliminate deductions, it will be revenue neutral. Remember that? But the deductions are already eliminated. Did you hear anybody in the liberal media remind him of that? Did you hear anybody in the liberal media mention that we have by far the lowest federal income tax, estate tax, and with deductions, corporate income taxes in the developed Western world? Did you hear anybody remind him that GDP between the end of World War II and 1981 outpaced GDP since then? Unemployment was lower then. If the media is so liberal, why don't they report these things and hundreds of others?
I don't know. Are there any other questions?
Regarding your question about medical records being available due to ramifications from Obamacare, it's my understanding that medical records started to go online for the safety of patients as a hospital-to-hospital, peer-to-peer type thing for our own benefit. And that being the case, that happened long before Obamacare came along. That started happening 15 years ago.
Perhaps.
Yes, and because of that, and because of the Obamacare provision that insurance companies can't block people who have pre-existing conditions, it's really not a danger to anyone's safety to have those records available. As far as you were talking about, you have a condition that you don't want known. The only reason to not want it known is because insurance companies wouldn't cover you previously, really, right? Or because of possible social stigma. But if everyone's conditions are known and there are no pre-existing condition, needs, then what's the problem with that, and why would you be against it?
Well, listen, the point that I wanted to make there is simply that the government now, especially with the NSA, can find out anything that they want. And this is government people. This is not just private with your doctor. We have not been certain that the website for Obamacare is really secure. There was worry about that. I haven't heard anything lately. But if that isn't secure, folks, how secure would our medical information be? It's just knowing that if everything else is out there and they can hack into the president of Brazil's cell phone, they will know everything they want and every intimate detail about us. Another question? I'm going to wind it up real fast. Curtis?
Was this NSA spying stuff going on under President Bush?
Curtis, wait for the mic. No one can hear you.
This NSA spying and things like that on Sandra Merkel's cell phone. Did that just start under President Obama? Was all of this going on under President Bush and other presidents as well?
Most of this latest stuff has been under this administration. The Patriot Act was under Bush. The Patriot Act, if you have ever read that, it has to do with international calls, suspected people over in Iran talking to people in New York City. People who are in Iraq or Afghanistan talking to somebody here in Dallas. It was supposed to be one of those things that is international calls, and they would monitor that and check it out. It never implicated and was supposed to be between American citizens. That was the Patriot Act. That is a setup, I agree, for more snooping by the government.
Was Angela Merkel's cell phone being tapped by President Bush under his administration as well?
I don't have any idea.
I believe it was. I'll have to get some evidence, but from what I've read, that was going on long before Obama. Her cell phone and that stuff was being tapped long before President Obama.
I'll take another question or I'm done.
Can I just say one thing? I got one
Wait for the microphone.
Gun control. I belong to the NRA, by the way. But I remember about 3 years ago when Australia gathered up all the guns, like 644,000, and after they gathered them all up, I think crime, home invasions jumped about 30–40% all over Australia. So a few people that saw the light, they sold a lot of big PVC pipes over there where guys were burying their weapons and didn't turn them in. But
okay, a question?
That's something that could happen over here one of these days.
Question? Is that okay? That's a good comment, but there's supposed to be questions. I have a quote I brought. I've got 17 of them. I'll put it right here. You may not think it pertains to anything. It goes back a few hundred years, but it's good to know, and you are welcome to one copy of it. Albert.
Concerning the news media, I totally agree with you. It's just totally compromised, and you cannot believe anything in the United States of America as far as I'm concerned. And I think very little of it abroad is even good at this point. In recent years, I've seen Pravda be a little more accurate than what I've seen here in the United States. I would never have thought that I would have said that, but I've tried to look at different things. Given this, can we believe what the government is saying about what really happened in the Ukraine, what's really happening in Syria? The Moriarty spelled it out, what happened in Libya. The CIA and British MI6 are messing up the Middle East for their own interests. Can we believe any of this stuff?
Got to be careful to believe it. I agree. Well, if y'all want to have some time to talk, some of you might like to give it a shot.
Okay, now it's your turn to talk. Who wants to be first? There has to be a first. Who wants to be first up here? Okay.
I'll start it off. I need to be more technical.
Well, I didn't really plan to get up here, but look what you did to me. Concerning the TV news, what? Well, that's impossible. Concerning the TV news, go and look up Conan O'Brien when he, in a very humorous way, takes a certain subject in the news and picks the little short from newscasters all over this country, and they are saying identically the same script, the same very words, with a couple of them slightly different. All of these news media in the United States, completely across the country, are given the script. And why do you think an evening news reporter would be paid $10 or $15 million a year? They're not about to deviate from that script and lose that kind of a salary. And for the people who print money out of nothing, that's nothing. Concerning Ukraine, Syria, Libya, and so forth, we heard from the Moriartys. What we've been told is just not the truth. What is happening in this world is that the world is waking up to the fiat money system, the Rothschild banking system, which the Federal Reserve, World Bank, International Monetary Fund, and all of that are part of. The BRIC agreement between Brazil, Russia, India, and China is now the BRICS. South Africa has joined. They are moving away from the American dollar, away from the fiat money, and probably going to eventually go to a gold-backed currency. If this happens, hopefully, the entire monetary system that is present in the world today will collapse, and a real money system will exist, and we will have stability without all this inflation, deflation, and the corporate structure that grows up around the banks, as Thomas Jefferson told us about back in the 1700s. I just, anybody who wants to give me their email address, I'll forward this to you. I just listened to an interview of, her name is Karen Hudes, H-U-D-E-S. She was 20 years with the World Bank as an attorney, a top counselor with them. And she saw irregularities that needed to be corrected, and she went to one place where she was supposed to report it and got no results, and went right up to the top and eventually got ousted from the bank and has become a whistleblower. And she brings out the fact that the picture that we see is just nothing compared to what's really going on. And I won't go into her big picture, but I'm sitting here listening to liberal and conservative. this is just like all the different religions that have killed each other for centuries. These are divisive ideas. I started coming to these meetings because I didn't understand the liberal consciousness. I didn't get it. And I wanted to. So I've learned that the liberal thinking is very caring about their fellow man. But I believe they're also very naive. You know, I've said this 100 times here, not quite. Yuri Bezmenov, if you go on the YouTube and watch his interview, he states that the liberals are the last phase of putting in a totalitarian government, a police state. And they are the ones who usher it in because they think all this good stuff is going to happen. We're turning all the power over to government. They're going to take care of everybody. Because they will be the most disillusioned when they don't see their dreams come forward, when the next morning it's going to be a police state, they round them up in the middle of the night, take them out in the field and shoot them. In Vietnam, South Vietnam, they killed 7,000 people in one night when they had the change over to a police state. The IRS. I totally agree with you about the IRS. The statistics have been that through pressure that the IRS puts on people, they've had an average of about 100,000 suicides of American citizens a year. That is a criminal organization. Right now, the United States, because of this BRIC agreement, I'm sure, has put 16,000 American troops in Paraguay and built an airfield there with a longer runway than their major national airport. And the Paraguayan government has passed laws that our soldiers there do not fall under their laws or any international laws. What are we doing putting police forces all over this world to control it? I think the United States, seen from a worldwide view, our hats are getting blacker and blacker and blacker. I used to wonder when I lived a year in Germany why these people would come up to me and talk about, what are you doing in Vietnam? That's just awful, because I thought we were doing a great thing there. I had believed all the crap, basically, that our government had been feeding us. Today, I see it totally differently. I knew that, or I learned that the Gulf of Tonkin never happened. It was a false flag. That's how they always convince you to get into something that you wouldn't go into normally. That's how they move people around in the world. If anybody can, I hope she's, Virginia Prodan is a lawyer here in Dallas. Okay, she grew up in Romania under Ceausescu, and she was a lawyer there. She started speaking out against the increasing levels of socialism that were making everybody poor and making the people around the socialist, fascist government richer in hell. She got ousted from her country, and she came over here, and I heard a lecture of hers, and it just brought tears to my eyes. She stated, I am an American, and she is saying, do not go towards socialism, because it always ends up putting all the power in the hands of the greedy and lusting for power, who are the wolves in our society. We're the sheep.
Okay, you're next.
Yeah, during the speech, I listened to, it was almost like listening to another Fox News presentation, which sometimes in order to try and find out what's going on, I sometimes basically have to hold my ears and nose to kind of listen to it. You know, you listen to a lot of accusations and charges, but very little empirical evidence to sort of back things up. And liberals are the main ones who are pushing for big government to control everything. If I remember correctly, it was President Bush who pushed through the prescription drug plan that wasn't paid for. And if I remember correctly, he created an entirely new department in federal government called Homeland Security. That wasn't a liberal institution. So to blame everything as if liberals want to take over government. The previous administration also started a war, an illegal war there, by people, by the way, who don't mind seeing kids. And I spent 28 years, I spent 32 years, my life in the military, and I served over there as a chaplain. So I know what it's like to do casualty notifications, graveside funerals. or war, and I know what many of the leaders over there thought about that as well. The war was pushed through by people who don't mind sending other kids there to fight, but when it came time for them to serve, they got deferments and things like that. Your President Bush, your Dick Cheneys, your George Tenets, your Wolfowitz, even Mitt Romney, all of them, when it came time for them to serve, they got deferments. Somebody asked Heartless Cheney, why didn't you serve in Vietnam? He said, well, I had other priorities. Yes, to save his behind. But he doesn't mind sending somebody else's kids. So it seems as though Republicans only get concerned about debt and deficit when the Democrats in the Oval Office. But it was Vice President Cheney who said over and over again, deficits don't matter. So, the whole accusation that liberals want to take over federal government and, make everybody dependent upon that, that may have some merit, but I didn't see any empirical evidence stated or facts stated just to support that. Nothing was said about corporate welfare and corporate handouts and things like that. Show me something, Republicans basically want to shift spending maybe from social programs. Many of them have had unintended consequences. And I don't like seeing somebody getting some assistance that they don't need. But I also know more than 300,000 veterans on food stamps and welfare. I don't see that as welfare dependency or depending on federal government. Most of the people, there are more than 300,000 disabled veterans on food stamps and welfare. I don't mind taking care of them. We got plenty of corporate welfare out there as well. Concerning immigration, President Bush got 45% of Hispanic vote. They are strong, they have strong family values. So to jump to the conclusion that by, giving amnesty to all of the illegal immigrants here, that they are automatically going to vote a Republican is just false. There's no basis of that whatsoever. He got 45% of the Hispanic vote there. So to assume that they automatically, to stereotype and typecast them as if they're all going to vote Democrat is simply not true. If that was true, Republicans wouldn't have gotten that percentage of the Hispanic vote. Why not? Instead of blaming all of this, wanting to give illegal immigrants, the liberals want to give amnesty. What about employers who hire illegal immigrants? Why are Republicans so reluctant to enforce the laws? They're on the books in various states against hiring illegal immigrants. Many of your restaurants, your hotels, and things like that would completely shut down. So what are we supposed to do with them? Take 11 million people, send them across the border? Your hotels and many of your restaurants, especially in New York City, a major city, would literally shut down, especially in New York. Who's cleaning the floors? Who's cleaning the bathrooms? Who's changing the bed sheets and things like that? So I don't like stereotyping and typecasting. Now, I was just in the midst of reviewing President Obama's gun control. I don't see anything whatsoever, any evidence, other than just Republicans and libertarians and Tea Party members playing the fear card, playing upon everybody's fears and anxiety that it's the minorities, and all of these coded language and coded words, dog whistle words, such as what he mentioned about drawing up some little bogus comparison about what was going on under slavery and Jim Crow, and all of that's being reversed and things like that. That I can go and eat I can eat in this restaurant here. I can drink out of water fountains in other places. Those are the things that were going under Jim Crow and segregation like that. No welfare or whatever dependency has reversed any of that. So that's a bogus comparison. That in that sense, I was wondering if I was sitting in a doggone Klan rally or something like that. I hate to hear that coming up. That simply come from somebody who's playing the fear card, these coded words, coded languages. What about the many white Americans, others? And he didn't say that, who are dependent on their own food stamps and welfare. What are we going to do about corporations such as Exxon, who get $40 million a year? And they're probably one of the wealthiest companies in the world. So let's talk something about, the whole government dependency. And don't just blame it on liberals. As I mentioned before, the prescription drug plan, creating Homeland Security, a whole new department, and starting an illegal war something that wasn't paid for, none of that. And by the way, under President Bush, and I'll say this, and I know my 15 minutes are up, Republicans under President Bush gave benefits to the unemployed 5 times without them being paid for. They voted to approve extension of unemployment benefits 5 times without them being paid for. Now the president wants to do that, and they're all of a sudden insisting that they be paid for. Just blatant hypocrisy. This speech should have been given. If there's anything that's going to rally Democrats to get to the polls this fall, I would like to see this put out on the net and spread out more. It's right in line with Todd Akins and his rape comment, some of the other comments in the last 2010 and 2012 that cost Republicans some election. So just put this out. Get on Fox News. There has about 95% of the talk shows in the country are Fox News. So that's the conservative media, not liberal media. It's owned by conservatives. Fox News and your talk show, that's media as well. I feel that.
I disagree with every single word that was just said. George Bush was the most liberal Republican president we have had in modern times. And those 2 statements you made about him are absolutely true. So my question is, Ray is correct. Just because a Republican does corrupt things doesn't change one iota a Democrat doing things that are not good for the country. That is a spurious statement, an argument to discredit truth. And to raise the issue of race when it hasn't been raised. That's happened in the last week. People use words that they don't have the vaguest idea have any racial meaning to anybody. And if a person doesn't like that, they come zipping out and said, you are referring to people who are of another ethnic origin, when they had no intention of that at all. If we cannot discuss facts as they are, we're not very sensible people. I'll just say one word about welfare. If you take the minority families in this country in 1950, they were mostly married. They were doing pretty well. We spent $7 trillion on welfare. And the white, black, brown, green, purple, orange people of any kind who are welfare people are not any better off than they were. The quote welfare program has not brought them out of that. It's cultural, and there's obviously been some dependency there. It's been going on for 50 years, multiple generations. New Orleans was the perfect example when the hurricane blew in. 3rd generation families living down in that ward. 2 generations of the 3 frequently had never had a job in their life. A lot of them, 100,000 went to Houston. They went a lot of other places. They came to Dallas. Alligator across the shopping center there in Casa Linda is a perfect example. Came up to Dallas and said, we're not going back home to New Orleans. We discovered that there's a different culture and people can get out and make it on their own. And America does provide that venue. But as soon as you hook your umbilical cord into the body of the government, it becomes increasingly a dependent thing. Veterans should be drawing benefits. I don't think Ray said a frapping word about it's immoral to give veterans benefits when they've been injured in a war. That's a spurious argument if there ever was one. We owe them. They have served us. They are invaluable. We love them, whether we know them or not. And for anybody on the left side of the street to say that people on the right side of the street hate veterans or minorities or anybody as a group is just an absolute made-up misunderstanding of who they're hearing and what's being said. It's not being said. That is not what Ray said tonight. That is not what I am saying tonight. I am very active for helping those without, and I'm all for it. Let's do it. Let's try to get our country running better. but no free rides for forever bumness.
Yeah, I've got to say one thing, correct you on something. He called me out in the audience. You remember, he called me out in the audience here when it comes to race. He singled me out whenever he made that comment about comparing slavery and Jim Crow, and now it's all been undone. I didn't bring that up initially.
I was only glad that you're here.
Well, he singled
We're all glad you're here.
Well, he brought up the issue of race when he brought up the Jim Crow and segregation and slavery issue. I didn't just bring that up out of the clear blue sky. I had to respond to that because he singled me out for the question. So, misunderstanding, whatever.
Okay, who's next?
The Supreme Court ruled Obamacare to be a tax. I think we really need to pay attention to that and realize that what we're seeing as a health care plan in all those thousands of pages of that document really is of a different nature. If the Supreme Court of the land ruled it as a tax rather than a health care system, I think it deserves our attention. I think we need to look at what's actually going on versus the narrative. A lot of the comments made both in the speech and in rebuttal so far are about the narrative out there when I believe actually something totally different is going on. Maybe somewhat similar, but it's still different. Wednesday night I had a chance to go to a meeting of the Bill of Rights Defense Council. And in attendance there, I met people I knew from the Dallas Peace Center and a Catholic organization. I can't recall the name. Pax Christi. And it was an incredible meeting where Shahid Buttar, an attorney for the BORDC, spoke about the Bill of Rights to what I would take to be a very liberal audience. And what were their concerns? Many of the same concerns we have on what people might consider the conservative side. And I think that we could have, if you want to look for hope, we could have a coming together here on the basics if we really just kind of cut out a lot of the narrative and look beyond the narrative. Another interesting thing, Thursday night I got a chance as a cameraman to videotape Michelle Bachmann speaking here in Dallas at a private political and I guess religious meeting where she actually just about quoted the Moriartys who spoke here in what she described of the policy of what went on in Libya. And I don't know whether it was just advising, maybe she just took the advisement that here in this area we know what's actually going on, and so she spilled the beans. But it was really kind of a shock to her audience to hear something other than the standard narrative. One of the things that I believe as far as part of what Ray was talking about, we are in a cultural dismantling along the lines of the principles of Saul Alinsky and the Cloward and Piven protocol for bringing this country's economy down. The Weather Underground, members of the Weather Underground were speaking when they thought perhaps they would be able to seize power of arresting 50 million and eliminating 25 million. If you dial that forward to current numbers, we could be talking about 75 million Americans eliminated for the implementation of basically a socialist tyranny. If I have any beef with the left, the beef is they have the good intentions, but there is really a problem when you get to the issue of assessment and accountability, that they're actually getting to what their goal is. I grew up in a liberal family. I've mentioned that here before. I had blacks actually living in my home with me, trying to attend a local college and getting locked out of the college by the current discrimination of that day. And my father was a four-state regional director of Project Head Start, which really did its best to give people a hand up, but that hand up only worked if you worked at it. It never was intended to be a hand out. And that's the problem with government, that when it starts to be a hand out, then it just disempowers the whole culture. One of the things that I think we're also missing in our watching the narrative going on is the fact NAFTA-GATT was a bipartisan issue. It was passed by Republicans and Democrats. It was not just Bill Clinton, it was also Bob Dole pushing for it. And one former union organizer in Ohio, Terry Hayfield, really did an expose exposing that we're all being hoodwinked. And it is true. It is true. And on one level, George Bush was very liberal. And on another level, Obama is very, I wouldn't exactly call it conservative, but he's accomplishing the agenda. If you take his promises when he was campaigning and look at what he actually did, he may as well have been George Bush. Because all the wars, all the different things, the Bush administration, this is what Shahid Buttar was bringing up and getting a lot of agreement. So we have people who are awake to that. They're awake to an issue. I think we can get together on the local level, and I think we can find common ground based around the Bill of Rights. And that's really what we need to do, is both parties need to be supporting and defending the common rights of man that we won here in this country. We don't need to fight again to win these back. We need to just stand up and say no when they're being taken. Thank you.
Okay, who's next?
Well, Ray, a very interesting speech. I knew it would be, and I'm glad I came. I must say, I see a totally different world that you see. It's interesting. Perhaps it's because I come from a wholly different culture, but I just don't see this liberal conspiracy. If indeed there has been a liberal conspiracy, in my judgment, they've failed miserably. They've totally failed. In fact, I'm writing another book. If you look at what the wealth or the income of the 1%, it is back above where it was before the 29 crash. I mean, they're taking over 20% of the national cake. Now, I don't think that's a liberal conspiracy. Now, if you go to England, it's the same deal. You see the same curve. If you look at the actual median wage that's happened since the 80s, it's basically flatlined. Now, the GDP has grown by about 120%, but the average income is flatlined. Now, is this a liberal conspiracy? I can't believe it. Now, what I do see, I see a conspiracy of the rich elite. I do not. Now, the rich elite, if they're a liberal conspiracy, boy, I must have been missing something totally around here. I mean, the world must have really escaped me by. I just cannot see it. Now, the fact of the matter, you just can't say this is supposed to be a democracy. I mean, look, fundamentally, I thought a democracy was, it's supposed to respond to the wishes of the people. The problem really is the government has been bought by this rich elite. And they don't give a damn about the people. I mean, they've offshored the whole industrial base of the country. I mean, they've totally weakened it. They financially broken the damn country. Now, If that's a liberal conspiracy, my goodness, I don't believe the Rothschilds are liberals. I mean, or this other crooked gang, the World Trade Organization. I mean, none of these institutions, I think, are liberal anymore. I mean, we wanted, a decent world government with the United Nations and so on and so forth. We know it's all been corrupted. But to look upon this as a total liberal conspiracy, you're looking through the wrong mirror, Ray. I'm sorry. I just don't see it. Now, perhaps you'll persuade me some more or other people here who see this liberal conspiracy. I just don't see it. I'm sorry.
Okay, who's next? You're next. Yeah, you're next. Then you're up.
Well, Ray, I agree with just about everything you said, except I'm for Obamacare because until somebody else comes up with another plan where everybody can get covered at a cost that's affordable, then until that happens, I'm for Obamacare. But it's true, this country is in a decline. We're at risk. But it's not a liberal conspiracy, and it's just a strategy that has worked where the elite have taken control of the government. I mean, there's plenty of statistics and facts that will bear that out and prove what I'm saying. And and as far as the political parties go, the Republicans suck and the Democrats aren't much better at all. I mean, neither one of them is representing the people. Politicians know that in order to get elected, they've got to vote the right way and get campaign funds. And until that changes, we're in trouble, and I don't see it changing unless public demand forces it, and I don't see that happening because we have a media that's corporate controlled. They don't report a lot of things that I'm aware of. Many, like some of the things I mentioned earlier, I can promise you, back in the early 70s and late 60s, the things that I mentioned would have been brought up daily. Anyway, that's all I've got.
You're next. Yeah, you got your hand up, but then she's next after you.
Oh boy, now for something different. You had a lot of good speakers, now you have something different. Okay. Wow. Well, I was not surprised. This is kind of what I expected when I got here. And to kind of keep in the same mode, I'm going to say the same thing over again. But maybe you'll remember anything I say this time. I don't know. The word I'm going to bring up again is the left-right paradigm. We are being played. I mean, Ray, there's a lot of good points you made, I think. However, it really, like the gentleman said, you could just put it on the Heritage News Network and a lot of the reactions are gut reactions from people who identify themselves with Democrats. Basically, my whole point for speaking tonight is somehow we have to not be so reflexively, viscerally reactive along party lines. What is a political party? Well, I saw a definition I thought was pretty good. Political party is a conspiracy to wrest power of the government. That's all it is. And they will do anything to win. And so this is the thing I harp on every time I come up here. It's neither left nor right. Don't be. And the famous philosopher Hegel had this thing called the Hegelian dialectic, which is a divide and conquer. So it's working real well. The controlled media is doing its part. So you look on the internet and you just see almost everything, especially the Facebook, is like just one set of talking points on the right, another set on the left, and it works really well emotionally. However, somewhere, from my perspective, logic and common sense is lost. If you really are an American first, not a Democrat first, you would want to look at Obama's birth certificate. You would want to know why did he not close Guantanamo. You would want to know why he makes excuses for NDAA. You would want to know all these, what's the latest thing he did here? Oh, the NSA, why he couldn't just shut it down. He could just do it with a stroke of the pen. He opened it up, anyway, and vice versa. Now, I just mentioned a few things on one side of the talking point thing, but same thing. If you're American first, not a Republican first, you'd want to know why George Bush said, I saw those planes crash into the towers when the mainstream media said nobody saw them on TV. Anyway, the thing is, it's not a good way to really get at the truth is to be sucked into this left-right game. It's a very, very bad idea. The best, now this has been going on for a while, and then people come up with new word. The best word is the globalists. This is your elites. The globalists are going ahead. They don't care about gay marriage. They don't care about all this stuff that we fight about. They just keep on getting the money and increasing the technological power over us, increasing the arbitrary nature of money power. What is money? We really need to think about that because it controls a lot, and it's controlling us. So I don't know how to tell you that we need to not be divided so much. This is crazy. I'm the one that's called a conspiracy theorist, maybe because I look at some of that stuff without reflexively not looking at it. But I am actually not really proposing too many conspiracies. I really am very reluctant to do that. However, the people who are more in the mainstream, either left or right, they don't mind giving me all kinds of theories that are very unsupported. And we need to support our positions and stuff. It is important, and it's important that we reassert ourselves as a people. It's a historic moment in the world, and it doesn't divide along party lines. We are being divided. They're playing our emotions to fight, but we're always fighting each other and killing each other. The rich always survive. So the great historic moment when this country said of the people, for the people, by the people, that's a wonderful thing. Bill of Rights, that's a wonderful thing. Keep that first and foremost. Everything else, really put it second. Thank you.
Okay, you're next. You wanted the girl in the back there, woman in the back, did you want to be up here? You had your hand up before. Oh, I didn't know that. Well, who's next then?
I'll say another word.
All right.
Really, this has to do with welfare. If you ever read Das Kapital by Karl Marx, he lived in Camden Town, actually, where my dad was from, and he wrote it in the British Museum. The most salient point he ever said was that the capitalist system always gives the appearance of a surplus population. That's to say, there always has to be a reserve army of unemployed. Now, the best rate America has ever done is 5% unemployed. So what is 5% unemployed in today's America? That's 8 million people. So you will always have at least 8 million people unemployed. Now, we know that the figure of 5% is a fiction. So at best, you will probably always have about 7 or 8%. That means to say you will always have 12 million people unemployed. Always. That's the nature of the system. And in fact, what happened, really, And the fundamental problem is it's inflation. Now, in a truly competitive economy, you would have many players and many buyers. Okay, so the price and inflation would not occur. In fact, because the price would be controlled by the multitude of different players. What we have now is we have an increasing number of monopolies and oligopolies. They control the prices. This is why prices are going up. The unions don't have any power. For 30 years they've never had any power, yet we still have inflation. We do not have a capitalist competitive system. That's the problem. That's why all this has happened. Now, yes, I think there is an elite of money. It's certainly not liberal. As Hank just said, they just care about themselves. They're globalists. They don't give a damn about any particular country, as long as they can skive off to the remnants of the British Empire in the Cayman Islands and go tax-free and totally anonymous. They're happy. That's the system. Now, that's the thing that the country, you know, what we have is, you know, two completely misanthropic parties here, the Democrats and the Republicans, fighting it out, but they're both being paid for by the elite. And that's true in the whole Western world. Now, I'll say one thing about Little Finland. Little Finland spends probably more than most on its welfare, about 30%. Now, its growth rate is far better than the USA has been for the last 30 years. Now, how do you explain that? So to think that welfare spending is going to wreck the damned economy is untrue. It depends how clever you are, how good the government is in spending it. Now, that's our government, after all, a democracy. The last thing I'd say is about religion. Now, you cannot have, I don't care how devoted you are to a particular religion. This country was founded on the fact that religion and politics never mix. No religious person can force somebody else to adopt their views just because they say so. I mean, you know, that's anathema to America. So this Hobby Lobby business is ridiculous. If you own a private business, you cannot force your employee to adopt your religious views. It's wrong, and it's against the Constitution.
Hobby Lobby does not force anybody to abstain from having sex on Saturday night and going to the drugstore on Sunday and buying an abortion drug and taking it. They've never suggested that. That is not a relevant statement to that case. 20 approved things by the government, 4 that are abortants, they deny it to pay. The government is being religious in saying, you must. That's like saying, when you go to church on Saturday or Sunday or Friday, if you're a Muslim, that you must say these 42 words in your opening statement. That is religious intrusion, and this is too.
The lost word. The lost word is no. The ability to say no, the ability to say, I prefer not to. I prefer not to participate. I prefer not to have the government halfway through my wallet. That is liberty. The other side is compelled performance. The problem I have is not that we shouldn't be compassionate and we shouldn't have welfare. My problem is the way government handles it. Government grows through such programs. I would prefer not to. Now, what is going on in Finland? You know, Denmark, there are some people over from Denmark, they have like a month off. Their social system over there is working. What's the difference here? It's called bloodletting. We are being bled off I just learned something this last week listening to a program. Greg Palast, who has done some very good investigative reporting, was reporting on who was really behind the Exxon Valdez. It wasn't even the captain, although he took the blame. It wasn't the skipper who was at the helm. It was the primary stockholder of Exxon, which was J.P. Morgan Chase, Jamie Dimon. Jamie Dimon had pulled back all of the equipment, firefighting equipment, everything, hadn't done the training, turned off the system for cost saving that allowed them to navigate that area. They didn't even have depth sounding. And then we have the BP oil spill. Guess who was the primary stockholder in BP? J.P. Morgan Chase, Jamie Dimon. We are being literally ravaged by these radical capitalists at the top of this system. They are not conservative. They are not liberal. J.P. Morgan, these are some of the same people who paid for the Bolsheviks to go over from Manhattan. 80% of the Cheka over there under the Bolsheviks were from Manhattan. Many of them didn't even speak Russian. And then we talk about Mao. I think Brzezinski took credit for putting Mao in power in China. All these millions of people have been killed by these different regimes. It's the radical capitalists, the people at the top. The people that Ayn Rand would like to defend, bless her non-believing heart, non-beating heart right now. Anyway, it's a very interesting thing, but we got to realize we have a common enemy. That common enemy is the financial elite at the top. Thank you.
Okay, who's next? Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no.
We're running out of time.
Okay, this will be very quick. Yes, thank you. Concerning income tax, I know you weren't addressing this, but in Russia today, from what I have read, they have a flat tax of 12%. That beats the hell out of what we've got. Liberalism is a tool, just as conservatism is, to move towards fascism if we allow it to happen. We get so involved in our little issues way down here on levels that are just, they don't give a damn about any of these issues that we fight over. They don't care. Give you an example of how the emotional system can completely blind people. When Obama was first elected, there came a joke through the internet that I thought was hilarious. Obama, cartoon, is walking on the White House lawn and there's a little sign stuck in the ground that says White House, and his little thought balloon says, well, that's the first thing I have to change. And I thought it was hilarious. To me, that's not racial. It's just factual. And then another one came that was a picture of the White House painted black. I thought that was hilarious. To me, it wasn't racial, it was just factual. Well, I sent these over to a friend, and I thought she would really laugh at them. And she sent me back the ugliest, most vile emails I have ever had. I learned a new term. She said, I am a yellow dog Democrat, and that's the last we've ever had any contact. These little bitty issues that are really insignificant are meant to divide. That's what the parties are all about. Your party, my party. Well, I don't have a party anymore. I don't believe in them. Give you another example of a way to do it in Switzerland. A friend of mine, he used to drop into my office when I had a manufacturing business. He was from Switzerland, and he told me one day that his father had just retired, and the combination of his pension from his company plus the equivalent of Social Security gave him the highest level of income of his entire life for the rest of his life. That's the way they design it for their people because they care. Also, Switzerland is very much more loosely governed. The federal government is not nearly as powerful. The cantons are more powerful. And every male up until the age of 40-something has to have a weapon in the house because he's in the reserves. They have very little crime in that country. The Moriartys are still in touch with the tribal leadership in Libya, and the tribal leadership have told them that the Al-Qaeda that is ruling the country today is giving documents and passports to their radicals and giving them about $500,000, or I think it's $5 million apiece, to immigrate into the United States, 200 a month since they've been doing it. What about immigration here? Who gives a damn about that? Not this government. Al-Qaeda, incidentally, it was formed by the CIA and is still CIA, just as the Muslim Brotherhood was formed by British MI6 and is still MI6. That's what's going on over there. We are all playing these games like two roosters put in a fight to just cut each other to pieces, and then the people who are having fun out of that eat the roosters afterwards.
We're running out of time. We got your name.
My name's Annie, and I'm not going to say anything too specific, except that just emphatically I agree with Hank and Jim and several people who have spoken tonight about how blinded we are by this left and right fight that we're having among ourselves. It's crazy, and we need to look to other sources as far as what really is keeping us as a people, as a populist people, from having the things that we need, and it's not left versus right.
I guess I'm the last man standing, so I'll add my 2 cents worth. Yeah, well, he'll get to respond to the speaker what we all had to say, but I'll be the last man standing anyway. It's a question of our society today. I've said this before, I'll say it again. We have the best Congress money can buy. That's our biggest problem. And as a result, we have corporations controlling, when corporations control a government, that is known as fascism. That's where we're going. And that's what happens. And when you have corporations controlling government, certain things don't happen. For example, you can't get a law passed to put tariffs on corporations that go overseas on you because the corporations control the government. They're controlling the finances, and that's part of the problem. That's why we have to change our government. We have to get free elections. We have to get maybe the last 90 days of an election would be free to the people challenged. I ran for Congress in 94, 96. And I took in $100,000 of campaign contributions. In 2002, I ran again. Didn't get 10 cents. And the reason was they all went to Gephardt and says, where should we send the money? He said, send to open races and send to incumbents. Don't send anything to any challengers. Challengers haven't got a dime since the year 2000 in this country. As a result, challengers don't win elections. They never did win many anyway, but now they don't win any. The incumbents haven't made. And that's part of the problem. And that is one of our biggest problems, because if you have a corporation controlling the government, you're not going to get anywhere. And we have to change that. So, in my view, we need tariffs on corporations going overseas that would keep jobs in this country. And ultimately, we need to shorten our workday in this country. We've got 25 million people out of work right now. And someday we'll have, if we shorten the workday, go to a 6-hour day, we'll have 30-hour work week, we'll have everybody working, paying taxes. The government, more people working, paying taxes, less people not working, draining taxes. The government get a twofold benefit of increased tax revenue without raising taxes. Less bills to pay for people who aren't working, so they'll be working. This is how you drive an economy. This is how you put people to work. This is how things happen. And if you look at it was brought up here tonight, I think by Al here, for the past 30 years, wages have remained flat. Why? We've had the super unemployment. We have all the jobs overseas. So we can't get a decent wage in this country. That's what's happened. And people don't have the money. That's why the government's in trouble. We don't want to be the last generation to retire. That's part of what's happened also, because our people coming up they won't be able to. That's why we have to change things. That's what I have to see. Anyway, that's what I have to say, and I'll shut up. And our speaker gets to comment on a comment.
Well, you have been a great audience. I think we're all worn down and ready to go. If you could give me just another minute or two of your undivided attention. I'm going to cut short. I've got 2 pages here, and I'm just going to cut it short. There are some answers, I think, that will help our country. And one of the first things we need to do is secure the borders. And we can do that. We have the people, we have the technology, we have the money. Did you hear that? I said we need to secure the borders. We need to overturn or repeal, defund ObamaCare. It is unworkable, it's unfair, it's unaffordable. We need to reduce regulations. Over-regulations is not freedom. Over-regulation is not freedom. We need tax reform. Nobody's listening. Flat tax. Folks, we must change course. It won't happen unless Americans push back activism on a national scale, make the government fear the people instead of the other way around. I've got 2 quotes, and then we're going to go. Ready? The duty of a patriot is to protect his country from its government. The duty of a patriot is to protect his country from its government. Thomas Paine. All right, this last paragraph. There are moments in our history when we have to make a fundamental choice. This is one such moment. A moment when our choice will determine the life or death of our kind of society and the future of our children. Let's ensure that our children will have cause to rejoice that we did not forsake their freedom. Of course, this places a burden on us, but it is one that we must be willing to bear if we want our freedom to survive. Margaret Thatcher. Thank you very much. You're a good audience.
Okay, we have to be out of here by 9, just so you know, that's when they close this place. And we generally retire down to Starbucks at the corner. You're all welcome. And our speaker is certainly welcome. You get to work on him some more. If he's going to show up down there, I don't know if he will or not. You going to come down to Starbucks maybe?
I hadn't planned on it.
Well, we'll give you his free coffee, you know. Take care of you.
I've already been once today.
Yeah, well, you know, but anyway, people get a chance to talk to you.
Everybody got a copy of the Thomas Paine?
Yeah, I handed it all out.
Thank you. Good.
All right. So, anyway, that's it. So we're going to be at Starbucks, so see you all down there. All right.
This is William, your videographer from Two Hats Publishing. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like it, please leave comments below, or like us, or follow us, and get notices of all our videos. We love it, even when you call. So when visiting the Barbex restaurant, tell them you want your reservation to the next College of Comedy.